All right. Good morning, sir.
Good
oh,
morning.
oh shit! It's one. I just woke up, man. So I've been trying to quit smoking the vape. So I picked up a pack of cigarettes because it's way less nicotine concentrated. You know what I mean?
I
So the first
do.
thing I did, I woke up and I smoked a cigarette and I checked my phone and you texted me. I was like, ooh. I was like, fuck. It is a Monday. I've been um I've been kind of like sleeping in, staying up because it's been a journey, and like trying to quit smoking, it'll fuck your shit all up. Uh, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. I want to let you know I don't have anything wrote up because I don't like to write things up for this kind of shit.
Gotcha.
I like to let it flow. I think it's way better when you let it flow.
Authentic. I like that.
Very authentic. I don't know if you watched any HEMA House, but it's so goofy. It's literally me and dude at the end are like smoking, talking about whatever, and I put like a cough counter in. I want it to be like silly. It's
I
been
do get that.
it's been chill. It's been really
Yeah.
chill. So, welcome everybody to I don't actually know what I want to call this because I've been doing HEMA House, and I was gonna put Kirk into HEMA House, but uh, by the time I got to the after party, it was time for Kurt to go home, so we didn't get to do it at the event. But here we are now, just kind of getting to sit and talk on the camera, and we could sit here and talk about anything because I can edit it out. Um, it's not going to be one long form content, but uh, with me here now is Kurt Holtfreter. Tell them a little bit about yourself, where you're out of, how long you've been doing HEMA.
Thanks for having me out here, Bo. Like I said, I'm Kurt Holtfreter, and I am out of the Raleigh, North Carolina. I moved up here probably about 2021. So that's your time frame as far as like when I moved up to Raleigh. So the past 3 years I've lived here, but I've been coming up here since about 2017 to train with the Triangle Sword Guild. When I was still in active duty Marine Corps. Retired out of the Marines back in 2021 and then made Raleigh my permanent stay. Presently, I am the head instructor for the Armazari curriculum within TSG. And I did the Kunstsection with Johannes Lichtenauer and whatnot, his manuscripts and Zettel and the glosses off that for since 2017 till a couple of years ago. Before that, I did a lot of study on my own just because there's no one else around to do this. So
Yeah,
you got to figure it out. So that's just a little bit about me.
hell yeah. Well, we met at Raleigh last year. That's kind of how this started off. So, as a comparison from this year to last year, how did Raleigh look in terms of the event? I mean, there was way more to fight in than there ever was, to my understanding. So it was a
Mhm.
lot more going on. There was a lot more people in there. I feel like my pools were smaller because of it. Last year, 60 people in the open, 20 in tier A. I don't know how many for tier B or rookie. Rookie was probably about 22, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Uh, what? Who's? What came? How did tiers come about? Do you know?
I really don't know. So some of the stuff in the in the Hemaverse, if you will, I think there was a lot of discussion in about like how do you get fighters to come in, um, and if it's their first tournament, get them in like you know same like skill set and discipline kind of concepts across because a few years ago when I was still competing, um, I fought this person in their very first tournament.
Yeah.
That is a huge and I'm not you know and I can tell anybody can defeat me. That's not um, that's it's not impossible. But the thing that is though is that I'm a very seasoned fighter and I was a very seasoned competitor at the time. And and with that, this person's coming out there and they draw the short stick and like their first fight is with Combat Kurt. And that's kind of a
Yeah.
And I don't know whatever happened to that fighter, and I wish them the best because I mean it was a good fight. It was fun. Um, after a few bouts, I realized what their skill level was, and I was able to tailor it. But when you go into a tournament like that, people come there to win, and you're
Yeah.
not and you're not thinking like, oh, is this how many years has this person had here? And I think with an open concept, which is very good. I mean, it's good. It gives opportunity for competitors to compete with different disciplines and heights and weights. But if you're talking about coming in there as you've been fighting for a year, you've been training for a year, and this is your first tournament after 6 months of tournament prep, and then you're facing off with someone who's got that kind of stuff, it's kind of daunting. So I think part of it had to do with
Yeah.
that. Also, I don't know what the counts were for last year, but there was a lot of heat casualties, if I'm not mistaken. So some people condition for the uh, those long fights of having 9 to 10 fights. Many people don't, and many people I think also fight for what is, I would say, more of the I think the traditional, I don't think it's the right word, but like the more the traditional sense of tournaments, which is essentially like, you hit somebody, you go back. So you're constantly getting breaks rather than that continual fight format, which is what the Raleigh Open offers everybody. So I think those are really some of those factors. I wasn't on the planning committee, but those are the big things I think that was thinking on that because we had a big pool and we wanted to give out more. So that's why I understand it as.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Real quick before I continue, I'm gonna see. Talk a little. I'm gonna see if my mic picks you up real quick.
Okay, I'm still talking. Is it coming through?
Barely. Just barely. But it'll be cool. It'll be cool. I'm gonna just move this right here and turn you down a little more here. If there's a little bit of echo on my end, worst case scenario, I edited it a little better.
Gotcha.
It's all the same thing. You're all talking into something. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I thought pools was interesting. Pools. If you look at me last year, I was like eighth, right, out of however many. This year, I was like 15th. I was winning way less fights because I had to. Well, I fought one variety of skill level. There was like the dogs barking, but there was like tier A, and then there was like tier S within tier A for me. So I had to fight like Ben Akrig, and it's like twice in a row. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting here like I have kind of been waiting to fight this guy for like 2 tournaments, so it was cool. I keep seeing him on the list and shitting bricks,
Yeah.
so I'm like, all right, I get it out the way. It's like conquering your fear of the dark or something as a little kid. It's like it's like all right, let's go ahead and get it over with.
Yeah.
But I fought him. I had to fight Tom twice. I had to fight Rob twice. I only had a handful of people I had to fight once.
Yeah.
Raleigh was a good event for me
Yeah.
this year. I know it wasn't a good event for everyone. There was a little problem with some people that they had with the level of force.
Mm.
Mainly mainly from like a handful of fighters. I'm not gonna call nobody out, but some people felt as if, and I did by extension. I didn't think about it then, but some people felt as if maybe uh, the cards were not being handed out at all. Yeah, because I had a buddy that got waffled, a handful of buddies that just got hit too hard. One had a thrust too hard, and there was like a repeat offender who was doing it. So, what? How I kind of saw it was I saw Raleigh this year, and I'm thinking, oh my god, this is turning into like a West Coast competition, or like literally anywhere else, because the Southeast is so particular. Like we're kind of like one of the only
Mm.
ones with this excessive force rule. It feels like. Versus, so we get people that travel down or across or whatever, and they come to fight in this, and they're going ham, but they're not getting carded or anything. And I don't know. I would have liked to see more excessive force callings called. That's a lot coming from me. That's a lot coming from me. I'm the king of excessive force. I used to be, anyways. I fought the last 3 tournaments without it, but do you have any? I know you were strict on the cards, which I can appreciate. even if there was a little miscommunication or whatever within it. I get that as a dude who used to marshal for H&B.
Yeah.
Oh man, I get that. I felt your pain, dude. It's like, ah, but yeah. So what are your thoughts? Like, when I don't know how much of it you saw because you were directing, but do you feel like maybe they're gonna in the future address it as like, hey, we should probably stick to what we said about excessive force, or is the excessive force kind of waning away because of the level of competition that's kind of coming in?
So one thing that was very interesting, I'm going to talk a little bit about the tier system because I directed in all three of the tiers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the thing that watching all of them, it was really, really interesting because honestly, in every pool, every director, how you set up your pool really sets the stage. And I mean, and I chose to, I read the rule sets. I did everything I could to understand them, and I wanted to embody not I didn't want to be a hard ass out there, but I'm a retired gunnery sergeant, so left and right lateral limits are kind of my thing, and like you hold within there, and there's always gray area. Personally, I do understand that there's tournament. Being a director, it's how you set the stage. So because in the tier B, everyone in there, I feel like tier B and A has some of the fiercest fightings. But tier B, why? Because it becomes a little bit of the Hunger Games, and you want to become that next tier level, like staying in there because you want to maybe fight in tier A the following year. Or you're pushed that way because you're tier B is not, they're not unseasoned anymore. The rookie league was actually the most fun that I had, and it was a little bit doubly in spots if you go by rules like that. But at the same time too, I saw a lot of good, I'm sorry, a lot of I felt like trying to apply application and not just spare copter their way through something. I know it was a very unpopular call that I did in my very first pool, and I was not trying. And I'm going to leave names out just for professional purposes. I don't want to shame anybody. I mean, listen, I study Armazari. One-handed strikes with a spade duemani is something that the man did. So, but again, for the purpose of this space, if that is written in there that this is off the table, then I have to call it. The big thing that I saw for excessive force is that having seen all that, each tier was a little bit different experience. And when I got to tier A as the director, a lot of the stuff felt like I was in the fight because I'm watching this fight. I mean, I'm as engaged as possible, and I mean literally. People sitting out there, they saw me in Mesa Porta de Ferro, with using Lanza.
I watched my video. I watched my video and saw you like stop me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Very gracefully did you use that stick. I'm gonna give you props for that. You murdered it.
Well, I appreciate. I mean, I had that right there because I didn't want to interfere with what the fighting was, and then be able to project out there. But to say all that, it's a hard thing. And having been a guy who really loved competing and I stepped away because it just needs to be the kind of thing that I'm looking for. I judged excessive force differently within each pool, within each tier, I should say. So for like the rookies, they were more likely to play slower and not hit as hard, at least in the pools I was in, or maybe I just scared them. I don't know. But in doing that, it felt like they were doing a lot more like I'm trying to do these things. I didn't see a lot of the high hand, like really high Fontag positions that you might see out of a Meyer manuscript or some of the glosses of Lichtenauer. I didn't see that. But, in tier B, there was, and with tier B, I saw a lot of, beating to strike, back around type stuff.
Yeah,
again, not really expensive.
And it looked really pretty at some points too. Like I noticed that tier A looked a lot different than tier B in that way because it was 50-50. Like if you fought Ben Aykroyd, I don't know. I've probably been fucking his name up for a solid week. I'm sorry, dude. But if you fought him and you like go fight Rob, when I fought Rob, I was like, oh man, this motherfucker won't stop cutting, dude. So I kind of got into that flow where it's like, all right, I need to stop this dude because he's gonna cut back around. So I went for, that was the only time where I was like, oh, I should grapple him. You know what I mean? So it was a lot different. But watching Will's fights, I mean, it was chink 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 for a good bit of them, and some of the other ones in Tier B.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I mean, Tier B was very, again, it was intense, but then Tier A, and honestly, I feel like what's happening is like we're we're gonna go. I'm getting to answer the question, but I think these are all things I have to send in there first to get to the page. So when it comes down to like Tier A, one of the things I had to stop a pool at one point, and I talked to people offline. We were at the National Hall, so we just finished up the rotations. We were about to rotate, and I pulled people. It's like, listen, it's not me you have to impress. It's these three people around me that you have to impress. And I need you to understand that for the purpose of this tournament, and I forget who this person was. And if they're watching, please help me remember. Again, my whole point that I was telling them was like, look, for the purpose of this tournament, I wouldn't have come to any of this because all this is just smacking who can hit faster. And we're going into the realm of who can hit faster and then count the double out rather than use technique and strike and everything else. And again, how we do ours at the Raleigh Open, where it's like, if the person is judging, would this person count this way? Would you count that second strike? Would that person be able to? You can get some of that stuff, but the problem is that there's so many people that just, and I'll say it, they Starcopter. That's all. That was the only go-to thing. Tier A, in many regards, for me,
calling me out with this works.
It's not. It wasn't as. Tier A is much more of a competition of athleticism and grit rather than it was on manner and technique because you have such, like you say, and again, I'll mess it up too. So, Ben Aykroyd here again, like him, having faced him off for the gold last year. He is an incredible fencer and he's very athletic and he's got a lot of movement out there. And, and me being out there, facing off against that's a hard fight. Watching people do the stuff that's there, and I mean, like a lot of the stuff within there were some fighters that really they would tie things, they would restrain, and you'd hear them scream pommel, and I was like, okay, in my mind as the judge, that's perfect, and not to mention also like so they fought hard to get to a spot to control it. Their fight was hard against the sword. Their fight wasn't hard against the person. And
yep. I'm gonna disagree a little.
Please.
I wish someone would just pommel strike me. I wish someone would just. I don't want to get pommel yelled at me. That's it's not embarrassing, but it's like fuck. I could shoot a double leg still.
Yeah.
I still get like 2 seconds where I'm like, oh shit, and I want to like duck. But that happened to me with Rob, and I think I said on camera, if you go watch the Raleigh Open mic'd up, I'm like, fuck, I wish he would just pommel strike me. But I agree, because if you can wrap it up and be like, hey, buddy, I mean, that's kind of like, especially with Fiore, you see a lot of Fiore plays, he gives them the opportunity to kill themselves a lot after he gets to a position. He's like, hey, man, you wanna die or get the shit beat out of you? Which is it gonna be today?
Right. And so when it comes down to that, and I get it, especially when doing armored armazari or harness festion, however people want to call it, pommel strikes actually are part of the process to turn a helmet in so many ways. And it's not about the percussive force, but more about the percussive action to turn somebody. But when you talk, and how many, but for me, especially in this area, there's a lot of people that conflate helmets with masks. So, and I've had to tell people, listen, you're not wearing a helmet. I promise you would know the difference if you put on a helmet.
It's about a 10 pound minimum difference.
Yeah. 10 pound, you smell oil, you're breathing CO2, your vision's limited.
Oh yeah,
Um,
especially through all that chainmail. You're like,
yes,
WD-40.
getting high off the fumes of oil, and so I mean, so when it comes down to pommel strikes, I think that's necessary. Now, the individual I'm talking about here, when they would call pommel, there was no doubt in my mind. And I was a director. So for me, this person comes up, he had their arms wrapped, and he would just go boom, and like he would scream pommel, and on the execution, he would say pommel, but he wouldn't hit. And I was like, that guy's face has exploded. Um, and on top of that, what a demonstration of control, because he yells it out. And again, and if you're the fighter out there that knows who I'm talking about here, again, please understand. I don't know if you're comfortable with me talking about it. So about who you are and whatnot. I really appreciate that. I saw that several times too. So excessive force with blades is a different thing though, and this is where I think that the community has some learning to learn about.
110%. Because last year at Raleigh, every time I used the sword, I got a card. Every time. With the blades is different because when I'm speaking for, and I'm not just speaking like excessive force in tier C through A, I'm
Right.
talking throughout the whole tournament. Because I mean, have you seen
Right.
a saber tournament? Have you seen
Yes.
a? Well, I thought saber was chill. I thought saber was kind of chill, but
No.
apparently not. No, it wasn't chill.
What I've seen about when I say I didn't get to go to Friday, but I have seen I've seen Saber done before, and it is very a lot of I've heard people make, and I think it's an easy misconception to make, but once you've handled enough, it's really not it's really not the case where when people say I've heard people make the comment that one-handed swords you can demonstrate more control than you can with a two-handed weapon, and I disagree with that. I think when you have a one-handed sword on there, you're actually more likely because there's more strain, there's more extension, the muscles tend, there's torque. These things are made to turn and whirl in different directions. We're not talking about Bolognese side sword or rapier. You're talking about something that is supposed to have momentum to carry forth to strike. So when it came to strikes, this is a part right here that it's a hard topic, and I think honestly one of the things that is interesting about this is for example, one of the pools that I was directing in, there was a fighter on one. There were two fighters. They squared off, and one of them they were striking from out of measure and hadn't even made crossing yet. They hadn't even crossed plane, and they were attacking in. And the person at that then has their sword leveled at postal longa, long point, whatever you want to call it. Now you're attacking somebody who's got the point directly at you. So first and foremost, in my world, anyone that attacks from on high to a center line position is going to can get parried, can be offsets, can be whatever you want to call it, exchanged very easily. And I remember their coach being on the side there telling their fighter, "Hey, deal with the threat, contain the threat, then attack." And then at one point in time here, the fighter who was not attacking, who was maintaining a center line position, all they did was they stepped offline. They did one accrescimento with their lead leg, and they made post longa. It was scary. It was a scary moment, I think, for both those fighters. Because and the thing is right here. So he extends and hits the person in the throat. If I had been on the other side, I'm not even kidding you. I could have pulled up my picture of the Getty. It would have been a picture perfect image of the exchange of thrusts. And all he did was he just stepped offline. Now, what happens afterwards here, and this is why I think the conversation of excessive force needs to be had. Steps offline, stabs the guy in the neck. The guy who gets stabbed in the neck, it misses his bib, it misses everything, hits him square in the neck. It was very close, and it was very close to potentially hitting his trachea. He was fine. There's no, I mean, I think it shook him up. I think it shook everybody up because in that moment everything is supposed to be fun. Everything here just went to a very serious situation, and in that situation, I chose to tell the table that the person, because here comes the question. So, who was that had excessive force? Who had excessive force in that situation? I think what happens in many HEMA tournaments right now, and this is just my observation, and I'm absolutely open to having people disagree on this. I want to say it as a precursor. the person that does something, that walks into a thrust, that gets clotheslined by their own not containing of an action, that strikes at somebody with such force that they perform a colpo volano, because a colpo volano is not about power, it's about release. That's the thing that I think many people don't understand. A proper colpo volano, you are literally just allowing that person to hit themselves with just as hard as they hit you with rotation. The only thing that's pivot is on hands. And I know there's a lot of these people say you can control that. I disagree. I think that in the moment right there, in order to control that, you have to let it go.
That's the best thing about being good at cutting. You're not doing that much work. You're letting that sword do the work. And that can be kind of a pain in the ass whenever you're trying to stop yourself. One thing that kind of helped me, I not mean to derail you, but
no.
Like kendo. Learning a little bit of kendo, how to stop that motherfucker right before it hits. That's helped me so much. Now, I'll also, so that's kind of going back to like people coming in when someone's in long point, right? If I feel like if you kill yourself and you are walking onto it, the other person's excessive force is like not there, because all he had to do was one bop. If you run into it, that's really on you. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's a handful of people too that would also like it was totally their fault. You know, like full momentum going into a thrust, like happened in side sword. Both of them. You know, dagger and two sword. I'm sure two sword hit like a fucking truck, but yeah, that's just one of those things. It's like fucking excessive force is really hard to like navigate, and I don't feel like we have. I'm not gonna say. Nah, I'll say it. I don't feel like some of the ring bosses are maybe competent enough to card to be a little mean to their fighters, to even be mean to their judges sometimes. Like when I was judging H&B, I threw dudes out of my like judge pool to be like, hey, go give me someone else. You kind of suck, you know. But like we don't have that luxury in HEMA. But I appreciated seeing I seen like a whole total of like, I don't know if Owen judged, but if Owen judged, Owen's a really good judge. Shout out Owen. But there's a handful of judges where I'm like, yeah, that dude's in charge. And then there's a handful, even in tier A, that I was like, didn't even have a stick. And I was like, ooh, you probably need that, dude. You know what I mean? We got swords. You've got your body. It's not a good mix. But yeah, back to what you were getting at there.
No, and thank you for that. I think those are also very important things to bring up, and I have thoughts on that too. But I asked the question like, so what's excessive force? Excessive force to me. So, for example, a bogan, colpo volano, abschneiden, whatever you want to call it, the action of taking a blow and traversing it across. Kata number 4, if you want to, in Nihon Kendo kata, right? So, the whole point of that right there is transfer of energy. And you're absolutely right. If you do kata and not forms, I'm talking about kata, then you learn to stop at certain points. And that's actually been something that, is very hard. I incorporate that a lot with my Armazari curriculum, because if you just hit somebody, anybody can hit somebody. Can you control it? And that's a big part that I think is kind of lost, because it's all about hitting first. In that regard, in the regard of excessive force, I think that in the moment it is very easy to crowd please. And so there was a person in that pool that, while we had the halt and everything, I checked on it. I mean, the person that hit that did that offline exchange with us was very upset. They didn't enjoy it. They weren't thugging it out. They're on the other side. They're going, and they just had a very near real moment in a very near real situation happen. Because anytime you hit somebody in the throat and they start grabbing the throat, start coughing like hysterically, that scares. That's a scary moment. So in that moment, there's
or doing it to somebody, that shit is scary. I can say that for a fact. That happened. One of our guys. I mean, I'm pretty sure it caught his gorget and just ran it through. You know what I mean? And that's scary. That's really fucking scary. I'm like, I don't want my dudes to die. I wouldn't care if it happened to me as much, but not everyone's the same, you know?
Right. Right. Um, and that's actually a point about that right there. So I had somebody on the side there saying, well, that was excessive. That guy didn't have to stab that hard. And I turned to this individual. They were not a participant. They weren't even in any of my staff on my pool. But they were within earshot of it all. And I looked at this person and I said, um, I agree with you that the other fighter that ran into that sword was absolutely out of control. And the look that they gave me was like they were shocked by that, because I think what we have here is like, well, if you can control that, you can't control if the other person runs in or hits too hard on the sword. So I turned to the table and I said, listen, I'm not calling excessive force there, because the guy, I watched it, all he did was step off line. He stepped off line. There might be, he stepped off line, maybe a little bit forward motion in that. And the other guy had not been contending with the blade the entire time. And that's not an attack on either of those individuals. It's more of a commentary of awareness to people that watch that and aren't in it. And that's a big part too that I think a lot of people forget about, is that being in the fight is hard to contend with. And
Very
everything's
hard.
everything's
very hard.
It's slow, right? And so I think what happens too is like some directors, and I'm not in those rings, so I didn't see a lot of other things out there. I'd walk around afterwards, or I'd try to help out with fighters, or talk to other people here, people on the team that I've been working with elsewhere. But I didn't watch a lot of it. There's a few things I saw in other pools, and I was like, what the heck is happening over there?
Yeah, as soon as I walked in the door, you know what I saw? Suplex.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I said something about it. I don't remember. But as soon as I walked in the door, tier B, I look at a pool. I don't know if the pool was done or what, or if they called time. And it was lighthearted. It looked like more of a hug and a lift. But I was like, card. If that was me, I'd been fucked. If that was me, I'd been boned. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was sitting there like,
Yeah.
I wish there was a little more consistency on some things, but we had so many different judges, and I think really getting everyone on the same fucking page is gonna help going forward with excessive force, especially. Have you seen Casey's work on DBAD?
Actually, yes. I'm actually in
on
the process
screen for everybody.
I'm digesting a lot of the stuff that he sent me the list of it all, and I like what I'm seeing here. It's one of the things I got to talk to Casey and Chris Earls before on Friday before everyone went in for the tournament, for Sabre, and I told him, it was like, I think based off of what I'd heard, I hadn't read anything yet, but based off what I'd heard, and I'm more along the way, and more in lines to believe what I'm saying now. DBAD is needle and thread. But getting people to have the ability to, having effective director, judges in space, having the ability to say, nope, that's not the case here. Sorry, that's not the case here. And not letting the crowd sway you or how it looks, which is very hard to do. It's not easy. Especially when you're sitting there and you're supposed to have control of a ring, and then all of a sudden something happens and it's not your fault. You may be able to influence what's happening there, and you do have an ability to deal with it. Those are the areas right there that a director has the power over. But what happens in that ring right there, you have no control over the moment. We only have control over the onset of what the space looks like and what happens afterwards. They go, what are our actions? Excessive force when it comes to blows of the sword is the other part about that right now is, and again, this actually goes into a larger conversation I've been having more frequently, and I don't really care to have it. We have misaligned weights of swords. So your sword is, it's heavier in the blade and it's lighter in the handle, which gives power in certain ways that you want to fight.
And it has fucking no flex, which sucks. But that was a problem on I ordered a medium flex and it came in as not a medium flex, which I didn't bitch about, but because it passes. But it's at the same time I have to change how I thrust. I'll let go of a hand and pull back that left if it's a little too strong. But sometimes in the moment fighting, different case.
Exactly, and you can't fault a fighter for picking a piece of equipment that they favor for their style of fighting, for their body type. And this actually gets into, so when it came down to sword blows, there were 5 times that I saw sparks in the pools I was in. I only called 2 of them I let pass, and then I gave a verbal warning to both fighters that if I saw it again, I was going to give a yellow card for excessive force. And I think you may have been in that. I was like, thank you so much for your fervor and your gentlemen. Let's tone it back here. Get back to what we're supposed to do here. Okay, if I see it again, then I'm gonna have to call this. I get it. Again, having been what may have been classified as a tier A fighter, although I never paid attention to my scorecard, never cared for it. I cared to fight.
You won last year, you would have been tier A. Or you were second, right?
I was.
It was top 8 was automatically tier A, because I was looking at it like, oh, I'm boned, I'm 8th. I was like, oh shit.
So I mean, in that regard, like whatever that ended up being, like my whole thing was, I know how hard those fights are, and it's there's lots of pressure, and I think one of the things that would actually do us a lot of good. So I mean, for anyone that's ever held the fetters, I'm sorry, I'll call what I see them as the sport swords that I utilize for tournaments. You'll notice the blade is significantly shorter, the handles are significantly shorter, and that's because I wanted to build a sword for the purpose of these events to try to utilize a historical length or a practice length of a sharp sword that I've had from Albion's manufacturing line to a period of time to practice my art. Now, I remember going around just talking to people last year and saying, so what made you get this sword right here? It's like, well, it's got a flip, which gives you go around a guard. This one's lighter here in my hand, so I can swing it faster. So again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about competitors, and nothing wrong with this, competitors picking the tool that they want to game the situation, the outcome. Now, that's no different than someone picking a heavier sword to blow through guards. That's no different than having a broader sword that when you sweep a blade across it, it actually locks in place a little bit better. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But the thing is right here, that makes excessive force, in my opinion, next to impossible to really quantify when you're talking about striking out and everything like this. Because again, you don't have a way to standardize anything. The 3 times I saw excessive force that I called and said, I'm not giving a yellow card here for this because no one got hit. I held time, everything, is when I saw a rain of sparks, and he was on a parry, a grind down, and then off of that, they both broke away. On the breakaway, I stopped the fight, the exchange to address that situation. And after that, they retempered it back in. So my answer, and the long and short, I know that's a lot of stuff here, but there's a lot here to talk about excessive force. Is one, I think that directors and people out there, I think there needs to be some awareness to the fact that there are absolutely some techniques within historical martial arts which are made to capitalize on somebody else's excessive force, and that if you deploy one of them, then you're not the one that's an excessive force.
Being able to identify that, though,
is very difficult.
Another story, especially as a ring boss, But
yes.
I will say, I want to see. Yeah, I love TSG. I love JD, but I want for the next Raleigh a little more transparency on like, hey, this might be like the competition level. This might be how excessive force looks out. I don't know. I want to see a little more unity there with the judging and a little more like transparency towards the fighters that are coming in, because there are a lot of fighters that came in that didn't want to get hit hard, and at that point, does it become like not a weight class or a height class thing, but does it become like a lower intensity competitor or higher intensity competitor thing? Because higher intensity competitors, I say that as me, we seem to be like a minority. There's a handful of us that don't mind getting hit hard as fuck, and then there's a handful of us that are like, fuck no, we don't want that. And if you mix the two, you start getting some issues. So I feel like just maybe not even like holding well, yeah, like holding to a certain standard, right?
Yeah.
Let's hold to it, but let's be transparent with the people that are coming and paying this money and traveling all this way. Because I like to think of it kind of like business at the end of the day, and this is kind of my thing when I ran Midlands, even though it hit like a truck. Longsword was atrocious, you know, but I tried to design Longsword for to be like anyone can come in and it's cool and it's safe, and then Combat Longsword is like, all right, you're choosing to be way less safe, but it's a fight, you know, you can punch, you can kick, which is honestly, in my opinion, probably a little more safe than some of the blade swinging I've seen at many of events, including my own. But it's also one of those things where I don't want to do pools for Combat Longsword. That might become like a 1v1 card fight kind of deal, you know. But I tried to make everything 110 transparency, like 110% on what you were about to get into. Everyone who showed up, it wasn't that many people, you know. I think I capped everything off at 16. The most we had for Longsword was 14. I kind of told everyone in the beginning, hey, did you read the rules? Everyone read the rules. Hey, do you know what you're getting into? Thumbs up, right? I went over them anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know if we went over that at Raleigh, but I remember my first Queens, there was a big huddle. And it was at this Queens too, the big huddle. And I'm pretty sure they did it at Raleigh, where it was like everyone came together and it was like, have we read the rules? And Queens had a surprising amount of people who just did not. By the time I got to Raleigh, everyone kind of did. But this year around, with the tiers, I didn't see anything like at all talking about, hey, these are the rules, you got questions. I don't know if I just missed that part, but you know, it kind of just seemed to be more director to director. If you watch my tier A Longsword pool 1, JD comes out and he's pretty transparent, like, hey, I don't want any blood in my ring. The only blood we had in there was John blood. That's that, you know. You came in there and you were like, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna do cool Lanza positions, I'm gonna be me, I'm gonna do my job, and you did your job in my pool really fucking well, really fucking well, and I appreciated it because it was like, you see a lot of people come in that judge, that don't have a stick. I'm not gonna sit here and just be like, oh, they're a wet noodle, but a lot of people I'm sitting looking at, I'm like, oh, you need a little bit more authority, especially in like tier A. You know, you need a little bit more authority in that fight to keep it under wraps. You know, and we don't want to stress too many people out judging the same pool for however many hours, however many times a day. I know we need to rotate, but you know, maybe. And I feel like I've kind of been thinking about this because someone was like, yo, you should judge, and I was like, no. It's like, as long as I'm not counting, I feel like counting would fuck me up more than anything. Like, I could probably ring boss because that's what I'm used to. Breaking the action's kind of new. I played with it, and it's funny, I played with it after Raleigh with my student sparring. I was like, let me ring boss a little, and I'm like, okay, it's just using the stick. It's just seeing an exchange, using the stick, back off. Oh, did that happen? Okay, cool. Okay. Card, warning, whatever. And being by the book. And I didn't see a lot of that. You see, there's a good bit of inconsistency in HEMA. I feel like if we had, and Bohert has this, so this is why I want to advocate for it. Whoever's listening to this, I'm not going to do it. I might be a part of it, but you should do it. Casey, I'm talking to you through the fourth wall right now. And I feel like it could tie in with DBAD, you know. You could do unified judges training in the Southeast in 2 different spots, twice a year, 3 times, however many a year, you know. Here's all the people that come and judge events. You can come be a certified judge under the system. I think that would be fucking amazing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I feel like it would keep it consistent. It would train some amazing judges, right? And it's not like you can't pre-event plan for this. Even if you're just running your own event, show up and train the judging. The mock tourneys at Swordwind are great. I've never been to one, but I always hear great things because they're like, oh yeah, we came in for this mock tourney. Some of us practice judging, some of us practice this and that. And by the time you got to Queens, you're like, okay, this is tight. It wasn't always consistent, but it was tight. It was
Yeah.
it was cool. It was like, all right, I like this. I can respect it. I can get behind it. But if there was more cooperation there, within other groups, like groups coming together to do it, whatever. If everyone kind of worked together, because everyone's running these tournaments together, and my tournament ran with TSG and Swordwind helping me judge primarily, and then counting's counting, right? I picked fighters to count mainly, whether or not they were my students that had a really good eye for the thing. Like I let Dakota judge all day.
Right.
He wasn't fighting. I was like, hey, dude, you're killing it. You want to just stay in all day? And he was like, yeah. I was like, all right, cool. You're getting paid at the end of the day anyway. Just do it. He stayed in. I might have had one judge to rotate, but I even had extra people. This is also because I had less space, but I had extra people on the sides with sticks. Just in case shit goes, off the wall. I would like to see. I'm kind of ranting, but I would like to see judges move around more too. You can only, especially at Raleigh, there's that big ass field. I know people are filming their fights, and you want the field in view, right? But we're not in a ring, we're not in a cage. Move around at least the outskirts of it so you can see that exchange. Everyone's judging will be a little more consistent at that point. I feel like, even in H&B when we had the list, I've got four counters that are like fucking running around, and then they go to their spot at the end, and I'm like, all right, come here. All right, cool, nice scores, dude. How did you count that many points? What are you smoking? You know what I mean? That's how it was for me. But then you still have to take their word for it, right? To a degree. In H&B, head marshal still had kind of like the final say on things. We would average out everyone's kind of scores and then be like, okay, how do we want to put this? Should we do a refight, a draw?
Right.
What's going on? And then through that, I just found that as far as counting and seeing the things, you gotta find your angle, and I'd love to see more judges finding their angle. Chris is really good at that. I see her like dropping level, moving over, coming back over, dropping level again, probably jumping at some point. I don't know. Everyone's kind of fucking tall that ends up in finals anyway, so I wouldn't blame her.
So there's the thing about it is I actually like the fact that the director has no say in it. The only thing that they're supposed to be, they're legitimately a ref.
It can seem like bias. It can seem like bias. And I don't know why it is the way it is in H&B. But I was always told, like, hey, at least when I was marshal, 2 degrees, like, count your dude's scores. But if you have a dude come up to you, and I guess this was a uniquely Bohurt problem because everything's metal on metal. It's like if you have a dude that's like his count is not the same as like the other count or anyone else's count, you got a problem with your judge. Usually by then, after that match, I'll throw that dude out and go get a new dude. Like, all right.
Have you had the chance to talk to any of the judges from Raleigh Open?
So I mic'd up a judge at Queens. So I got to see a little peek of what goes on in between breaks as far as that goes. And I've talked to plenty of judges about the judging. I've had judges come up to me, like I said, someone was like, you should judge, and I was like, you don't want me to count. I can guarantee you that. But as far as judging, I've talked to a handful of them, kind of got their word on how they wanted. Everyone's different. Everyone's gonna run their ring a little different, right? Which is cool as long as they're consistent with the rules. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
I'm talking Raleigh Open judges. I'm not a judge. I was a director.
Judges. Oh, so yeah. I mean, a handful, just because I knew them. You know what I
You might
mean?
be you might be surprised on this because I'll tell you my experience last year. Very rarely, I mean very 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 rarely, when I was judging for like I was doing side sword, I think side sword and buckler. Very rarely was my count anything different than like 1 to 2 or 0 2 or 0 1. And
Yeah, that adds up.
this year I talked to several people. I'm not going to speak for them if they, and again, like they're people I train with, and they're saying that they looked at their clickers and half the time they're like nothing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the part right there where I do understand. So like in bow hurt, and I've never done it,
It's
but
like
I know
counting
there's
boxing. It's like counting boxing and bow hurt. That's
right,
really all it is. It's like, all right, two head, one arm, or whatever the score was, you know.
right,
But that's the whole time. So you're sitting there going, tink, 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 tink. Versus
yeah,
emo, like you're rating an exchange.
correct,
And then you're judging it based on that. So it's a little different. Like in bow hurt, we'd have dudes come up. All right, I had a dude once. This was like during poleaxe or sword and board or something. I had a dude come up because you bring all your judges to the middle, right, or
yeah,
to the side, whatever, and you talk to them. You're like, all right, what happened? Who won? And they show you the score, and I'm like, all right, so here's the judge that's on this side with this angle that kind of has the same angle as this guy. Where the fuck did this guy get 62 points and this person's only got like 30?
yeah.
Like, how did you get double? Like, are you counting wrong? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? That's one of those things where it's like, all right, so how the fuck do I score this now? Because I know that didn't happen because I watched the fight. Because at some degree too, while I'm just here looking for safety, I can see how many times someone's getting hit.
And that's the part right there where again you're talking about a director running there. This is where um, I disagree. Where I think I've heard some people in previous years when I was competing in Raleigh Open, they say I think it'd be better if the director was one judging, and I said no, I disagree with that. This actually gives people sectors of fire that they can focus on rather than trying to do the entire thing here. The other thing too about I think the flags or the batons, everything else within HEMA is that they also become biased because as well as I do in a kendo shiai, what happens? Two people do this right here with the flag, and one guy goes, "Oh, no, this one. I meant this one right here." And they're
Yup.
all
Yup. No, I
so.
agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just
Yeah,
putting it out there. I think for HEMA, what you're talking about, the judges should just judge. The director should
yeah,
just be
yeah,
safety guy. I'm on it.
and,
I'm on board with
yeah.
that because you have to break it up exchange by exchange. Between exchanges, judges have a lot more to think about.
Right,
So they
right.
make their call on every exchange. That's cool. It's not like boxing. We're not counting like invisible strikes here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing too that I think is I mean one of the things too about this. So let's talk a little bit about that as far as standardization, because again that's I think what's happening here. I think this year, I think last year, and that's another reason why this doesn't interest me anymore. I think we're getting to a space where there needs to be a conversation about standardization, because you're not wrong, but here's the deal: if I say I'm going to be a director at Raleigh Open, and then I say I'm going to be a director at Queens, those are two very very different jobs, and there
Very
is no
different rule
standard.
sets. Very different rule sets. And yeah,
There,
no, incredibly different job. Um, but
right.
I feel like there's a lot of similarities where you can come
Yeah.
in there like there's a lot of rules that are similar. There's a lot of rules that are different. As far as the format of Queens, they allow Geislings, right? So you can do the one-handed strike from the outside, which is cool. Um, but you can't do that at Raleigh, right? So a judge does have to switch modes, and we probably need to figure out like a league with one rule set that's going across these tournaments. That's just an
Right.
idea.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to happen until people work together on that. But if
Mhm.
that does happen, could make it more consistent. If it doesn't, at least bring some people together to train like just authority in the ring, just like
Right.
having the balls to be like, all right, I'm doing this.
So, here's the thing. I'm going to talk about consistency. So, for those that do know, I was an aviation ordnanceman in the Marine Corps. And one thing about that is that, you have doctrines of stuff that is fact, period. Now you have policy that shifts because there's environmental things depending on where you're at that you have to adhere to, but the overarching policies are the same. If I leave from Cherry Point, North Carolina, and go to Japan, the general overarching policies are the same. Local regional things shift, but that means that when I go over there with whatever my job description is and I go to the other spot as an aviation ordnanceman, I have zero doubts about what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing right here. And I don't have to guess, the type of anything material that I'm working with here because it's all the same.
This is part of why I like DBAD, because you read DBAD. I kind of read DBAD. I looked through it. Right. I saw the things about it. When you looked at that, did that seem like general sportsmanship to you? Did that seem like the bare minimum to you? Because I looked at it and was like, that's the bare minimum.
And what I'm going to get at here is that's what I was saying before, that it's really the needle and the thread, but we have a bigger problem. And that's something, I shouldn't say problem. Problem's too strong. We have a bigger situation here that I think needs to be focused in the community, because as much as DBAD, I haven't finished it. Like I said, I'm digesting a lot of what I've read off it. Just to be clear on that, everything I'm with you. It's general sportsman-like conduct. Now, I'm going to say this right here because you're about to crack an egg, and I really don't care. That is general sportsman-like conduct that absolutely should be adhered to if you're playing the sport. As such, like you said before, having something that overarches and works together in a concept right there. So if you want to participate in this league, then everything there is unified. Now, there's no question that means that judge training doesn't have to be reinvented by the wheel 60 damn times. It's just done once, or consistently enough so that judges already know what they're doing. The only training you have to do in Raleigh is look at something, know where the blue band and the white band is, and click something here, and just know the rule is to stay quiet or to call out a safety zone. That's it. And at the end, you look down and you put up your hands, say, yep, this one, or it's even, whatever the case may be, right?
It's very simple. It's so simple, in fact, that like just counting in general, right? Even from Bohert. I could pick, I remember this one year, we picked HEMA dudes to, at this little beat down bar event. We picked like Ashley and Tom to count for us, and they fucking slaughtered. You know what I mean? So it's pretty much like, but not everyone who counts fights. So like in HEMA, they might not understand the exchange in the same way. That's my thing. But I get what you mean. It's like you got one band, you got the other, you got clickers. You're rating each exchange. All right. Whichever one, whatever you want to hold up, that's that.
And so this goes to so this is where a conversation that thankfully it's not been very prevalent, but except for when I go to like events like this and then people want to talk to me about it. The two fields that come under the term martial arts, you have, and in Kendo, you have Shiai and Budo. And here's the thing about that I think that this community, when I say community, I mean HEMA, would do very well for itself to embrace and to nurture and to understand and foster, is that we are not doing combatives. Under the umbrella of the word martial arts, and I just had a conversation about that literally this morning, you have combatives that are meant for war and for serious play. What I would call, it's not fair combat. And I'm not talking about dirty fighting. I'm talking about there is no height, there is no weights. It is and it is. And then you have sport, which is all fair. And this is the thing right here. It goes down to the age-old question of equity versus equality. And what are those two right here? And I might screw this up here. So if people are watching this and say he get hung up on that, please help me be better. But ultimately, right here, if you're talking about combatives, No one cares what you're wearing. No one cares what you have in your hand. And this is where, especially for like, armazzare, and I feel like it's, that and harness fechten. There are people that participate in that, and there are things in there that you are absolutely fucking dead. And having, especially after the last Holtfreter Labs video I released, where my squire is putting a sharp sword, various sharp implements into the chainmail to experience things right here. It is unequivocally, it is absolutely, you are dead, or you're hearing the pain compliance turning away, and your weight and everything collapsing. And anyone who's ever been in armor knows that your weight's different, and you get turned and suffocate to death on the ground. So there is that. That's your combatives concept, and then you have the sport. And in actuality, I think you and I've talked about this before, Bo. When it comes down to Buhert, to me, I feel like that's actually a lot closer to historical martial arts sport, where you have in the turning the list where they have the crowns that you're trying to knock them, or you're trying to knock the hell out of the person to ransom them. You're trying to take them down.
Yeah, no, 110%. And it's also like the intensity of which you can go in that level of equipment. I mean, you are really safe in all steel, and the way they sportify their equipment, they're really safe. So yeah, like it looks like probably a little bit more historic because it's based on something they did historically.
Right.
It's evolved and sportified. They used to not wear their armor all the time because that shit was expensive back then. They don't want to fuck it up. Yeah. But they had clubs. They had crude pieces of armor. So we're talking very early in it. And it wasn't quite the same as like how you see in like Italian dueling culture, right?
Right.
This is way earlier still. This is like, all right, we need to practice, we need to fight, we need to have a little fun. And it was rare. No one's having fun back then. We're all fucking, they're all dying and shit. They got their own problems to worry about. But when they could come together, they're like, all right, we need to preserve XYZ. Let's do this. It's come to the point now where it's kind of like it's a running tradition of that. Right. It's you can go ape shit. There's no thrusting, so as far as like martial validity, it's not gonna be combative, but it's not either. It's a sport. It's definitely a sport, but it's really close. It's really close.
And I think that's an important thing to remember here when you're talking about unarmored versus armored fighting, and how armor emboldens you. And a lot of times I think I've heard people in the HEMA sports tournament realm, and basically, essentially, it is you are. What am I trying to get at here? You're not wearing a helmet. We're wearing protective equipment that does serve as a sports armor so that people don't actually get their wrists and everything cut. So why am I saying this right here is because even though many people may be thinking that fighting in certain ways is very courageous, as a Marine, I understand courage to be something very different. Courage is not about going in there like, yep, I got this and walk away. That's what we call stupid. That's what we call brave, and that's what we call being young. And if you've never been punched in the mouth before, then you're not, and the people let you get away. That's why I have bully culture, right? Then what ends up happening is, you become very brave and all those other things right here. And then courage, as I understand it, is going forward when you were terrified. So, and I'm not saying that we have to take away all the arms and, all the protective equipment. Absolutely not. But I think one of the things that is very important here to understand is that we are in a stage right now where people lack in my opinion, the understanding that there is danger. So when danger happens, excessive force. When the reality is a technique, maybe like we talked about before, and well, that's excessive force right here. You penetrated the armor, so therefore you're out of control. When the reality is, the other person that exuded this is actually the one that's out of control. That's my first factor. Second thing is we don't have standardization of equipment, and I know that this is where I know a lot of people are going to be upset with me for this. I shouldn't say that. I get the sense that this is going to either a stem some conversation or people are going to be bothered by this. You've done kendo. Um, have you done any other type of sports like like played hockey or lacrosse or anything like that?
I never really played sports growing up, but I grew up always doing martial arts.
Okay.
So I've had gloves on, I've had gis on, I've had like ridiculous
Right.
like kudo headgear on. I've had I've done like
Right.
traditional Iaido. I've done a little bit of everything. Mainly stuck to grappling, but yeah, I understand that there's a level of equipment that you need that's standard across a good bit of
Right.
sports. Like I wear
Right.
fucking hockey shin pads to fight with in HEMA, but that's for hockey. Is it for HEMA? No, fuck no, right?
Well, and let me get to that because here's the part too. So the reason why I'm saying about the equipment, I mean, I know you're a Kendoka, so you also understand that the dogu that you're wearing.
In a way, like not really, but I understand it.
Okay,
I like it. I like it, but not really.
I
I wish
got
I
you. I
did
got
more.
you.
I wish I had the time to do more.
Well, as someone who had practiced it when I was in San Diego, you're not wearing armor. You're wearing the areas for people to strike. You're wearing the thing for people to strike. And if you strike somebody in the arm, it doesn't count because the whole point of kendo is to it's the sportification of a practice. It takes away everything else off the table out there and it literally makes it about how to fight. There are left and right lateral limits as far as what the shinai, for those that don't know, a bamboo sword can be as far as the weight is concerned. But generally speaking, they're all the same for the most part. And they give the wiggle room because not all bamboo grows the same, and you have these small variances right there in this ways that does that. So that's why you have a little bit of variances, as I understand it. And yes, there is synthetic shinais out there that are a little bit more robust, but they have to make the muster as far as for weight and flex and everything right here, and they have to look. I didn't know this was a thing until towards the last end of my years when I was actually training it. It has to look like the traditional bamboo because they're trying to make it as authentic to what the traditional practice is. Now,
Japanese are big on tradition like that. I didn't know that either. That's
yeah,
interesting.
and and mind you, that again, that was me leaving in 2010 to go cross country, and I remember learning about these things in the last minute. I was like, this is kind of crazy. I mean, that's what a tie to tradition that is. Now, and again, for those that may not know, if you do katana or daishi or shinai, right? Um, you have a 30 you can fight with a 39 or a 38-inch shinai. That's it. Unless you do nito, in which case right there, then you have your shoto is a specific weight, a specific length. You cannot strike with it, nothing else. It is a game. It is a game. And actually, I find kendo to be more skillful because you're actually trying to strike target areas rather than just hit anything. And I know that again, that's a part right here. Now, I'm not just going to talk about kendo here. Now, for women in kendo, they have to wear dogu, they have to have a shinai, and the standard for a woman in kendo for the sport is 38. I don't make the rules. That's just what I know and I understand. Naginata is another one right here where it's like, for those who don't know, and naginata being the Japanese halberd, this much more of a sword on the end of a spear um, than you might think within Western martial arts. But it is also, they have certain rules and regulations as far as what the weight is, where the strike pads are. But the strike pads and everything else that you have, the dogu that you wear, is all the same. And the objective is the same. The objective is to have this clean shot to the spot, the ippon, right? The first point. Now, let's take a look at Olympic fencing. And Olympic fencing mirrors many martial traditions, especially to the points of where you had foils and sabers. And of course, the tools for the sport have changed to meet safety requirements. And you're not killing anybody for real now.
No one's dying
And
now.
no, no.
Look up Olympic wax pistol dueling. Look that up.
Olympic wax.
Olympic wax pistol dueling. so many people. I think they had like a couple fatalities or something, and they stopped doing it. But it's like it looks like they've got on like fencing gear, and they're fucking popping each other with wax pistols.
Wow, I'm definitely, you know.
I'll put
Well,
it
so
on the screen.
oh God,
We're talking like 1910s, like 100 years ago at least.
that's something. And so just I can't see it on the screen. I'll be able to see it because I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm definitely going to take a look at it. So now this goes to the point of what I'm trying to say here that I think is how do we judge excessive force, and how do we take away bias, and how do we make sure that we have fighters that are able to go out there and contend? Unfortunately, I feel the only way that we ever get to that space is 100% sport categorization for an event. That means height classes, weight classes, and this is where it gets sticky, especially in our day and age. And no one gets the right to judge what somebody's vision for themselves are, their tastes. So then you're talking about having people that are they have does a man fight a woman? I can't answer that question. And again, these are questions out here for the sport. We have to look at.
I always like to leave this in there. Like, I'm gonna let the women decide on that one. That's not my horse to fuck. That's not my horse to fuck. Like, straight up. Like, I don't
Right.
even. I let them know. I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. This is your choice. This is 110% your choice.
Yeah.
Like, probably a little more old school. So, fucking dog barking again. But so like, it's a different intensity when I'm fighting a woman, but I also like grew up in a mixed gender dojo where it was like we're all kids, so it's a little different.
Sure.
It's like, yeah, I've totally had chicks knock the fuck out of me. I got older and had chicks fuck me up in like jujitsu and shit. It's cool if they sign up for it. You know what I mean? It's their choice. It's their choice. True. But like, we also, if it's their choice, there's not a lot of them. We can't just let like 6 women that come to an event all compete together for one medal. That's like no competition for them.
I agree.
So,
and that's
the excessive force rule kind of helps in there a whole lot.
There's a reason why so again, to be clear, I have no problem fighting women. In fact, within some of the best fights I have ever had, especially right now, are people within my lands. I mean, there's some who I fight every week, a couple times a week, and they eye gouge, they will pull my hair, hit my kick me in the knee me in the groin. And if you ever see me, I leave names off of this because it's again, I don't know if they want me to talk about that in an interview. And when we review armor, they're just as ruthless in there. My point is not that women have no place. That is not my point whatsoever. My point is that the conversation of excessive force, and this has nothing to do with, because there are plenty of times where there's a shorter guy and there's a shorter guy fighting a taller guy.
But shorter guy can be built like a brick shit house, and tall guy can be lanky.
Also, shorter guy can be not and scrappy and can be, you can understand that if you hit on me, I'm not the one.
I know that guy.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah, I know that guy.
And, have an escalation within a tier field that now it becomes mismatched. Now, again, my point of this right here is, and I do not agree, and I don't know what the answer is. That's the thing. I think it's a conversation that the league will understand. I think right now we're in a space. I don't know if we're in this space for this year, but it keeps like this comment about excessive force and like other things in regards to it. It comes down to the point of what are we trying to do? The Raleigh Open, Queen's Gambit, these are all sport events within the tradition of martial arts. They are not combatives. They are using combat skills to play a game, and that is okay. That is okay. Let me say it one more time. That is okay. But because that is okay, we have to understand that there are some people that go to these events that think, I'm doing the real thing because I have a metal sword here, and I'm going to buy XYZ sword for this. What I'm saying is maybe it's not a height and weight thing, but this is where it gets sticky because I've seen plenty of times in many sports communities out there where, they'll make it only about height. So what happens if you're the shortest person and you're fighting nothing but women and you win? You want to be that person, Bo?
No. I mean,
No.
I signed up for Crown. I bombed, but I signed up at Queens for Crown. Knowing damn good and well I'm not 5'10". Different, because it's not just women, right? It's me like going up, but
Right.
personal choice, right? I don't want to be the guy that's like bodying women out there and being a dick. That's not a good look.
But it,
It's not a
but
good
but you
look.
just said a second ago, and I agree with you. Fighting women in the traditions of martial arts, and that's why I say that this is where it becomes very sticky. I appreciate your honesty with this because you say I don't want to be out there because it's not about you. You may be fighting somebody and be completely and 100% about respect, but what other people see it as and how they digest it, you have no control over that.
So I've been fighting by the rules, right? So it doesn't matter really who I'm fighting in the tournament at this point, because in the Southeast there's excessive force, and
Right.
I'm not trying to get in trouble again. That's the end of the line. So like, if
Sure.
a woman
This
comes out
makes
there, I gotta
sense.
fight a woman. I'm gonna be just not as much of a dickhead as I would be to anyone else. At this point, um, like even me a year ago racking up cards, kind of being a cock. I don't think I could I'd feel really guilty still like fighting a woman like that. You know what I mean? So I don't think I had to, but I would tone it down. I think I've had to fight in tournament now
Right.
maybe one, and it was it didn't really mean much because it was like I'm fighting by the rules. So the rules totally affect it, right? This goes back to excessive force. It totally affects how you're gonna fight everyone, because everyone got fought the same way. It wasn't like that was a special like I'm gonna tone this down for this person.
Right.
It was like, all right, I can.
Right.
I don't want to feel like a dick, and I'm already not being a dick. It's like doubling down. You know what I mean? It's like I'm already trying not to be a dick. I have to fight a woman. I really don't want to be a dick now. But
So
if it's within
yeah.
the rules, then those two just go in, right? It's just like, all right, we're cool either way because the rules say I can't hit nobody too hard, and I could probably hit someone who is smaller to me, fucking really hard or not that hard, and it hurt them because they're more frail or they're more this or more that, and that's where weight comes in. You know what I mean? That's where weight comes in. That's where height comes in. But I was fighting a height class up at Queens. Had to fight one chick, tough chick, um, but it was the same treatment as everyone else, because the rules say don't hit people too fucking hard. That's where I'm at on it.
I don't disagree with any of that. And so this is where I'm trying to say here is that, one of the things I absolutely love about in the harness section world, and I have like when I got to go up to the Red Knight last year, and I fought several women up there. Um, in the rules of Armazzari and in the lists, because you are trying to get to a spot that is vulnerable, that will hurt, and you're not trying to hit it. The whole point is getting to a spot where you can get a technique. When you get to that, like I remember there was a person, I'll leave names out again for, again, I don't know if they want me talking about her. Um, Fantastic fight. She threw me to the ground. How did she do this? Leverage, placed the dagger in the right spot, made me go whoop, and then I went over. So this is what I'm trying to say here. If you're talking about a sport where there are rules and you're not trying to use things like pain compliance or joint locks and manipulation, those types of things, then there comes a point where there is the conversation of we are talking about touching someone. And because if you ever see what the Japanese did for kendo for World War II, it is vastly different. It is vastly different in that space, in that capacity. And again, at post World War II, it changed and they became more about cultivating spirit. And again, it's still split off. So here's the thing about that, though, and I know that there are opens, and that might be the way that you get around this. I'm not saying that women and men should not fight. That is not at all what I'm saying at all. Not at all. What I'm saying is if we're going to have the discussion about excessive force, and then we're going to sprinkle in inclusivity, diversification, and all these other things out here that are very important in the world of martial arts, if you say you will not fight, you'll fight a man harder than you fight a woman, that is not inclusive, and that is being divisive by itself. And I'm not saying you, right? So again, and some people relish on the ability to fight a woman just because they want to do that right there. And these are people who are jerks. There's other people out there that want to fight in a way like that, and they get labeled, they fight earnest with them because they say, well, they stood up like this right here. I'm not going to brain them, but they win. And then they get labeled as, well, why'd you hit her so hard? When the reality is it has nothing to do about it. Someone tries to go in there and save her when she didn't need your saving. If anything, may have thanked you for the earnest fight that happened afterwards. My point is like that right there, that sprinkling makes it next to impossible to have a discussion about those things. Because again, or you have someone that's crude of mouth and someone that's very refined and discussing, and the person that, we have bias there. So one of the things right there that I believe that sporting events does enable when you have these types of categories is it takes a lot of the bias off the table. It takes a lot of it off. The heights are no longer a factor because you are in a space that is deemed possible. The weights are no longer a factor because those are also equalized as much as possible. For HEMA, the weapons, the sport weapons are no longer a factor because they're all the same. And by having them be all the same, you take away those concepts right there that make it easier to say, oh, he's taller, he's shorter, he must have hit him harder. Because that's the problem with excessive force. And again, for the record, I am not saying, please make sure this gets out there, I am not saying that men and women should not fight.
I'll do an edit of every time you say it. I'll do a counter.
I appreciate that. Because that's the point of this right here. When you're talking about this, if you're talking about a sport event, and a tournament, to be clear in my eyes, is a sport event, and it should be a sport event because you shouldn't do half the other stuff that is available there for a very good reason. So if it's a sport event, standardization of equipment, standardization of rules is a huge point right here. So if we don't want to have, if we want to have this so we don't have judge or director confusion, if we want to make sure that rules and mindsets are all the same, then one, you need standardization. And, because otherwise you get the person in there that's nodding their head north and south. Yep, I read the rules. And they're just trying to keep time going on. And by the way, are the judges and the staff really going to talk about this? Or are they going to say, and I saw this before in other tournaments, well, you should have. So get with somebody here to read this here. And I was like, so if we don't have that, a standardization of rules, equipment, that alone in itself would empower DBAD. I don't think right now we may be in a spot right now where it's like, hey, the separation of heights and weights and male and female, that is a very hard thing to navigate. But making it so that you have where the sport tools are standardized, making sure the rules and regulations are standardized, and making it so that the roles in a tournament, because Queen's Gambit, I didn't go this year, the director's the one that's still telling what the hell's going on here, rather than the judges judging. So that's two spots right there. Think about this too. I can't remember if you were there I yellow carded several people at Raleigh Open for turning their backs. They hit somebody and they walked away. And I yelled to halt. And I said, fighter, the first time I did this as a fighter, I know that you're used to a rule set that tells you once you hit, you go back to your corner here. First and foremost, great Zanshin. But
Great. Yeah, no, I had to explain that word to a couple of my guys today. Not today, at Raleigh. Holy shit, it's only been a week since Raleigh, by the way. It's only been a week. So I'm still kind of there in a way.
Yeah.
But explaining like Sime and Zanshin to my guys, it's like a foreign concept to them because you can't put it in English. You can, but they won't understand it till they feel it, you know.
Yeah. You know, so and that's the thing about this. I remember talking to tell this person, I was like, I gave him a yellow card, you exposed your back. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, I know you're used to a tournament set here that basically says you go back and you walk over to your corner and you have the protection spot here. But you presumed that I had halted this fight. And as a consequence, you exposed your back. You don't presume this happened here. You wait for the stick to be put out in front here. When I halt, when I say break, fight, you were still face on right here. So that's another thing that a standardization of these things we go for. I know a lot of people will say, well, all these people do this and it's not a problem. I say, well, I get that. I get that. But we have so much drama over tournament nonsense.
Behavior.
Yeah.
Behavior that can be corrected by things like Zanshin.
Yeah.
Things like Zanshin. Things like shit. It comes down to culture, right? Because you have like such a diverse group of people coming in. You have like nerds, you have like nerdy jocks, you have like me. I don't know what the fuck I am, but I'm me. You know, like you. Right. I mean, you've got like people. I mean, if you're fighting with swords, you're probably a nutcase. To be honest, like in a way, one way or another, you're probably a little nutty, and it's cool. We want to celebrate being nutty together. That's why we're coming and sword fighting.
Right, right.
But like, there needs to be a standardization of behavior. That's why I really like DBAD. But what I think we lack is that we're not rooted in tradition because it's so new, and that's a lot of it. But I'm gonna tell you what, I'm a cut for this portion. How much time you got?
I'm just looking. I probably got about 20 or 30 minutes here.
Okay, let's take a quick break. I want to get some water. All right, welcome back. We took a little break. So good thing I'm chopping this up because now I'm brain dead. Good thing I'm chopping this up. Right. So a little less about Raleigh now. We've gone on and on and on, and I think we had really good conversation just then. I think that's probably something. I think we're talking about stuff out loud that people are talking about more behind closed doors, and I think that a lot of the closed door talk needs to be out loud.
Yes.
A lot of it, because nothing gets done when it's behind closed doors. Also, it kind of comes down to like sometimes the best PR is no PR. Some people don't want to look bad. Some people really don't want to look bad, and I get it. It. I've been looking bad for a while to some people. I'm a mixed bag with some people, you know, and I'm cool with it because I know who I am at the end of the day. I ain't get no cards this year. Fuck all y'all. Fuck all y'all, well, you know.
And I know we've talked about. I want to make one last bit about all that because again, I'd like to close that up here because I do want. I mean, we were talking about a topic of excessive force and some things that do need to be brushed out. But I do want to talk about the Raleigh Open in general on one thing, and that thing right there. It was and is because I love directing it. It is still my favorite tournament to go to. It's got a different feel to it. It's less. It allows fighters to explore. That does mean that it's a difficult challenge to get directors and judges up to speed, and you do need to have. I think you can't be a wet noodle if you're a director when you're letting people fight, and you have to have you have to be able to also tell people what is legal and what's not.
You got to look at like sports that take it seriously.
Yes.
Look at, and I think MMA is like a poor example, but it's a example. Look at the refs. In any, not just like UFC, like fuck Steve Maserati. That guy sucks, but he's in there. You know what I mean? You have to be willing to like put a fighter down if you got to. You got to be that guy.
Right.
You know, we got these big sticks. I think the sticks should be colored yellow and black because that's what I'm used to. It's like a big caution tape in your fucking face, so you'll stop.
Yeah.
Way
I do like that idea.
But I've never seen that in HEMA. I've only seen it in Boulder. I think I'm going to try to borrow Larry's for the next Midlands or whatever I do. because he's got all the H&B sticks, and I'm just like, hey man, let me get like 2, like let me just make 2, spray paint them, tape over them, boom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like that. We need to choose our directors carefully, and we need to give them sticks. We need to give them sticks. I think I'm totally in one of my fights. I don't know if you saw it at Raleigh, but you could hear me say in my mask, I'm like, give this dude a fucking stick.
Yeah.
Did you just have a bubble pop up?
I don't know what that was, man. I'm sorry.
All right, yeah, no, never mind. Don't give the director a stick.
Oh no.
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 But no, like seriously, I mean, you have to command authority in that ring to run it safely.
Yes.
Right? You absolutely have to. That's why when I saw you ring Boston, I was like, all right, cool, we're chill.
Yeah.
We're good, Even JD did a wonderful job. JD gave me a warning, and I was like, oh shit, I fucked up. It's like, I don't want to piss this guy off. That's how it should be. Versus like, you'll get some directors you don't know, you've never seen fight or anything like that. Makes you question. It's like, should this guy be doing the job he's doing?
Well, we had a conversation. Do you remember Casey's McKellen's YouTube that he put out there about the striking the bottle
Last Raleigh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was gonna go out there and like nail it for shits and gigs, but I didn't.
Well, so when I went out there, and actually you get that his video caught a lot of problems, which I thought was, I mean, I went up there and I just hit it. I mean, the one thing about it is, I figured you'd appreciate that.
You did what I was gonna do, so I don't feel bad about not doing it now.
There's a reason why, though, I could just walk up and hit it, and that's because the sword that I had out there was incredibly light. So therefore, because I know I'm a heavy hitter, because I understand body mechanics. So what do I do for me to make sure that I can strike and use blows and body positions the proper way, based off of an art, is I have to get a lighter tool. For the fight. And one of the things about that is that, there's a lot of people that went up there and they did the picture perfect strike, whatever. And I'm sitting off in the corner watching this, and I'm like, man, I fought half these people. Not a single one of them threw a spare like that at me.
I think the most honest dude was maybe like John Blood. But I don't remember watching the video, but I think I remember like watching him nail it, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. John Blood I fought him once at a practice. I mean, he smacked the fuck out of me. Like, not calling you out, John, because you don't get cards or anything. But I was like, that's honest,
Yeah. And that's my point about this, is that we have to be honest. If you're going to throw that, so that goes back to the thing about before, about like inclusivity and like what it looks like for a fight. Because the problem is, you don't have people that will fight people equally. And
I'm sure Ben Ackrig like totally held back on me, just on a skill level thing. But I mean, I was trying to blow through, dude. I shin sniped him, which was cool. That's about it,
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, and that's what I'm getting at here is that, is it the question that, we want everyone to do everything right here, but then do people have a standard in that? And I'm not saying that people don't. And this is a larger thing, because again, like I said, for me, the Raleigh Open, yes, I know I'm a member of TSG, and I'm not getting paid by them to say all this stuff, but I will tell you right now, I personally think that Raleigh Open, that the Triangle Sword Guild's event, is a model that should be repeated, because of what it allows for fighters to do, and because of what it takes the pressure off. I have to beat these judges right here, which only amplifies, and no one knows until the very end. And actually, I saw a lot more sportsmanlike conduct out there, where they embrace each other at the very end, or hey, touch my tip, bro. I mean, you in your touch video, right?
Bro. Yeah. Yeah, I saw a lot of that too. I agree. Yeah. I liked how Raleigh ran. I liked the intensity of Raleigh. I liked everything. There's always room for improvement.
Right.
But even like on my shit, when I had everyone come up, even if they had like something that was like, oh, this happened, they're like, this is still my favorite event.
Right.
Same kind of happened with Midlands when I ran it. Like everyone was like, oh my god, that was chaotic as fuck. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Right. They left even like dudes that we had to do. We had the one incident with the wall, with the concrete pillar rather. Both of those fighters,
Yeah.
I talked to them about it right there after the event. I put up like a post event feedback form, right? I didn't even have to. Half of them that were gonna fill it out didn't fill it out because I harassed them after, like, fucking tell me right now. And they were like, oh, okay, you're chill like that. Yeah, I'll tell you. And I was like, all right, we'll do it different next time. And that was that. Everyone left, and I don't think anyone really bitched about it past that point. It was all at the event, and it was all cool. It was a lot smaller, but and I'm sure it has a lot to play into it. But at the end of the day, it was like, even the dude that got red carded was like, this is my favorite tournament ever. It was like, yeah, dude, and you got thrown out. And it was cool, right? Even Wook got injured. I don't think he said it was his favorite event ever, but he came back and fought the next day, and he was an absolute trooper. But that's Wook, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he told me exactly how he felt about all of it, and I was like, respect. Cool. And he was so nice. He didn't want to hurt my feelings. He's like, I'll tell you later. I'm like, no, don't. My feelings don't get hurt like that. Just tell me now. Right. So we talked about it. I was like, all right, chill. I got you, bro.
Yeah.
You know, that was that. It was like, we're not going to do it in that space again. So next year's going to be in a boxing ring.
And I think that, and again, when you talk about standardization, again, if you're talking about in the pillar of sports, in the umbrella of martial arts, having standardization to give you part about that. And again, that's the last thing I really want to harp on that, because again, if the comment is, first and foremost, having had the experiences I had in the Marine Corps, having had the training I've had, having understand the stuff I've read on it, which is easier, expecting everyone to be better or make the parameters in a way so that they are better? And that's why I was making the comment before, is like, listen, if your notion is I'm going to fight as hard as I can no matter what out there, the reality is, if you don't change and alter yourself for somebody else, that's including everybody. If you're changing yourself and say, no, I'm not going to do this right here, now you're making special exceptions.
Me at Raleigh last year.
Yeah.
I went out there and I was like, you know what? Fuck all these dudes. Respectfully, fuck all these dudes. I love you all. I still was cool about it at the end. I did that less so this year in tournaments,
right.
Because I had to, because that was the rules, right? Because I couldn't do that, right? I couldn't go ape shit. Raleigh was like the one place where I was like, oh, there's grappling. I can fucking fight. I can do this, right? And I did, and I did really good. I didn't grapple this year, and I kind of like hate shit for it, but I was also feeling fucked up. I was like, I don't want to really grapple. I grappled Rob because I threw him like 3 times. I threw Rob like 3 times in one match last year. So I said on the camera, I was like, I feel really obligated to throw Rob right now. And also, he just keeps coming up and cutting, and I'm like, fuck, that might be the easiest option.
Yeah.
So it was like,
it's hard when things get taken off the table like that, man. I think that, like, and again, like what you're saying, like being able to play to your strengths and whatnot, that's where I remember, I think it was you last year, like you and Connor, I think you both threw your swords on, just grappled each other and fought out there.
Yeah, I think they changed the rules on that because of that, because now you had to like walk up and do all this crap, and I'm like sitting there trying to plan it with dudes. I was like, all right, we gotta like walk up, we gotta put the sword next to each other, we gotta touch shoulders, we gotta toss the sword. I didn't end up getting to do it because TRA was like, everyone kind of wanted to win, and I was like, I don't blame you. I wouldn't want my fucking scorecard to tank anyway, but it's not like it was on scorecard. So
I think that there's definitely some space in that. So again, the long and the short of it all, I think DBAD is the right for here, but it's the needle and the thread. The people have got to do the right thing, and I think the needle and thread for that, I think the hand in that is we have to train people to do those things. And on top of that, again, do I think we need to do heights, weights, and all the other stuff yet? No, but again, every other Olympic sport does that. Boxing does that. MMA does that. And I think that those things right there, they make it so that you have better control expectations out of like-bodied weight and length concepts. If you're talking about a martial arts thing right there, then where every dirty, nasty trick is allowed to preserve one's life, to quote the Getty, then none of that matters. But again, if you're talking about like, so say there's a big guy out there who's like 260, and he's a states wrestler. He's really good. If you pit him up against somebody who's like what 140,
Me.
yeah, and I know you're an accomplished grappler, and you can't. I count. The point being is when you take everything off the table, you only make it about the rules. In that situation, you're in trouble. If you make it where you can cheat, where you can break the rules to preserve your life, so that you have an upper hand, that's a completely different thing here. And since we're talking about a sport, which is what I believe the Piedmont League is moving towards, and I think that's a good thing. I think that gives them progress momentum to making it a lot more standardized and allows opportunities. So you're talking about your combat longsword. I don't, when I was talking to Casey about that, he and I, we've spoken on that. And I personally think it's kind of interesting. I was like, that right there is you have. Oh yeah, I can do this. I do longsword. Yeah, but do you do combats? That's the question. And
yeah, I had to cherry pick. It ended up kind of being open at the end, but everyone who signed up for that was like, "Oh hell yeah,"
Yeah.
And people that are like, "Oh hell yeah," are people that are like, "Okay, yeah I can do this." So I looked them up. I talked to them.
Yeah.
There are people that train specifically for it, and I was like, "That's sick. That's awesome. Yeah. I wish I could have fought in it, but I don't want to fight in my own tournament."
I think fighting in your own tournament. I mean, that's if I ever get to pull around some of the stuff that I want to do, I won't fight in it, which sucks. If you design your own tournaments, your own rules, and everything like this, and you fight and you win, well,
it could be a bad look. It could be a bad look, but it's like, man, fuck, I wish I could. It was like it looked so fun.
I get that.
I fought in my own ring. We were all just as confused on what the fuck was going on, though. It was like all me and my guys, and then like one dude that came from. It was Jim from y'all's group from TSG, Nightingale. Yeah, he came down and fucking wrecked us, like so gently. That was in the Open. We were so wrecked by the end of the Open, and I don't even think we scored anything right. It was just like, all right, yeah, you definitely whooped my ass. He gracefully made us eat shit. It wasn't like he fucking tossed us. He was like, "Ooh, Dayashi, like you're on the ground. All right, buddy." Like,
and that's the thing about that.
Everything off that.
Jim and I talk a lot about this whole concept between martial arts and martial sports. I always love his and my conversations, because the one thing about that is we both, I believe we both hear each other. I am not saying that you forsake the sports and only do the art. I'm not saying, that's not it. I'm saying that you have to be honest with yourself. And if you're going to do one of them where you take things off the table, then there are some safety things that you have to be putting in there. And Jim is one of those people that he's done a lot of training, a lot of training. He's been in it for like 60 years. That is not.
He told me how old he was, and I was like, really? I was like, oh man, you whip ass.
That is not the average HEMA fighter.
Hell no. No. Like he's a different breed. Straight up.
So I think that those are big things right there that need to be considered, because how do we get to that? Because I think the answer we all want to find at the very end here is that how do we get it so that this thing that we love so much is in a space where the drama stops. Like some of the stuff is unnecessary. We entertain it, we meddle in it, we play in it, and it's like, look, there's so much stuff that's out there that I think we could do so much better for.
It's like I like to think of it like this, and maybe this is why I am the way I am, but conflict's natural. It's very human, and I think that we embrace it through our fighting. And I think we have a hard time embracing it outside of the fighting, especially those that aren't used to it. And that's really complicated to navigate, but it's a really beautiful thing still. if you know it like that. Like me and you,
Right.
we know it like that, so it's different. I also understand that a little bit of drama can be a little bit of traction.
It
You know
can
what
be,
I mean?
yes.
It can be, and like learning if whether or not that's what you want, that can be a thing. Because like I could have made my Raleigh Open video and didn't cut anything, right? You saw my intro, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I talked a lot of shit in that intro. I had to dub over it because I was like, all right, Casey's been cool. I'm gonna save him from some drama. I'm gonna save Casey from some drama. I'm shouting you out, Casey. But I mean, that's how it went. I was like,
Yeah.
um, I
Well, traction can absolutely be, drama can be traction, but traction and a slippery slope just means you slide faster.
yes, no, absolutely. And I felt like while making it, I was like, well, I would like to talk about this because I think it's probably
Yeah.
important to hold people accountable for certain shit. Um, and a lot of people agreed with me on that. But at the end of the day, people were probably already expecting me to talk shit, so I didn't have to because they opened up the video and they saw that and they're like, ooh, all right, but the
Yeah.
video's cool though. So they kept watching,
Yep.
and that's what it was. That was our highest retention. Actually, it was like 9 minutes. We're averaging like 4 typically on a video or whatever. So that video did really well. And it's not really even about the view count or anything. It was like
Yeah.
I wanted people to watch it, and people did. And I'm glad I did it the way I did. I mean, that was like 3 days of me editing all night, to get out HEMA House, which was the easiest to edit through because it's just us on the couch talking. I just have to listen to an hour of footage, see if we said something fucking stupid or crazy or fucked up, or cut between the couches, leave the funny shit in, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creativity that kind of goes into that. But at the end of the day, it's like everything that happened is like embrace it, just let it come to here, and chill out.
Right.
And
And that's the part where, being able to let it come in. I got asked this question. I don't remember who or where. It was earlier this year. It's been a heck of a year. 2024. Wow, what a year. But I got asked the question, what was it about? Why did I want to retire from the sport? Well, one, I made a name for myself and people wanted to fight me. So it never felt like, and everyone fought me hard. And now, mind you, the guy who put himself there, me, enjoys a good fight. But it got to a point too where, can we just have fun at this? And it felt less and less and less like it's fun. And I'd watch the same individuals fight me. I'm sorry, fight somebody else.
thumbs up.
They would fight me, and then I'd watch as they'd fight other people, male, female. It didn't matter, and it was always different. And one thing I have prided myself on is that no matter who I fight against, I always endeavor. I don't care, male, female, old, young, whatever. I always endeavor to fight you as lethally and as controlled as possible because it is very hard to get people. It's very hard for people to understand striking with control. To me, the mark of respect in the martial arts is to fight everyone equally.
You got to give everyone your best because,
Yes.
they're coming out to fight you. And I felt like I gave everyone my best. Maybe not my best because I'm, not trying to get carded. But I gave
those shorts that help you.
I gave everyone a very consistent. No, the shorts were giving me +10 to mobility. The shorts were fucking killing it. But that was like the goofy factor, right? I've been trying to be a little goofy at some tournaments because it makes it more lighthearted and enjoyable for me now. But through that, I'm actually able to fight consistent to the rules and happily. And I ranked lower. I didn't plan on fighting queens.
Right.
I didn't train for it. I'm injured as fuck. I planned to fight Raleigh. I really didn't train for it because I fucking couldn't. I'm all fucked up. But I trained my guys. I know what I'm putting them through. I see their skill progression. I have to fight them. My guys did really good. I'm super proud of how they did at the end of the day, more so than me. I wanted to Florida was I'll say my first 2 this year. Judo state comp came away with 2 golds and a silver. right? That's me going and trying to slaughter, right? It's also judo. It's not sword fighting. I go to Florida, and I'm thinking it's pools, right? So we get through the first pool. I wiped the first pool, like 4 dudes, or 3. I don't remember. Something like that. And then I get through first round of the bracket. I get seeded in a good seed, so I wipe this dude with all hand snipes or whatever. And then I get knocked out by the dude that won second, John Knock. Cool. I that's my only loss of the day. Cool. I'll take it. I don't need the medal. I got a cool video now. I got a good memory, a cool video. I went on a cool trip, and I'm spreading the word. That was that, and that's kind of where I've been at now. So do I want to seriously compete, take home a medal? Sure. Right. But I think the way that I'm fighting now, more controlled, chilling, kind of sticking my bread and butter, I can do that, have fun, and it'll come if it comes. You know what I mean? Right. It's just I gotta definitely focus on me a little more, not stretch myself too thin next year. You know what I mean?
And that's I do, and honestly, that's the thing though. Again, when people would ask me why, is because I find myself, and I know I always get the eyebrow raised myself, because in doing martial arts and not sports, I have found myself connecting to myself, to any of my students, to any of the training partners I have here, a lot deeper because the rules are off the table. For the rules to be off the table, I have to temper myself, which means then it becomes, and again, it becomes about self-tempering and self-understanding. When you're trying to do an athletic event, you're not doing those things. And, let me phrase this. It's very rare that many people that's the focus of mind. They're thinking what they have to do to win. And, like I said, and again, for those who get to watch on Facebook, one of my lead instructors every Thursday, whether it be usually hand to hand, she kicks my ass. I literally thought about doing a montage to the song.
She's
another
badass.
She is.
She's badass as fuck.
And and again, the thing about one of the things that I will not speak for her. One of the things that I've noticed about that right there is that for me, when rules got taken off the table and certain safety implements got put into place, then the tables were a lot more equalized because she could, quote unquote, cheat and do the things that would preserve you in a fight and in the content and would not get you labeled as out of control. Whereas in a sport, if you do the thing that actually preserves your life or preserves someone that's wailing on you, then you become the bad guy there because you did the thing that's necessary against an application. If you want inclusivity, then everyone has to fight the same way against whoever you're fighting against right here. Now, that's not always easy, and therefore standards are very important and would help with excessive force. So why do I like the martial arts and why did I leave the tournament field? I like the inclusivity of martial arts where how you live and die is based off of your creativity of the art. I appreciate that a lot more because now my length and strength are only factors. They're not the only thing making me successful in a fight. So that's what I wanted to say about that. I think it's a great way to wrap it up. And again,
that's beautiful. No, that's very well put. I mean, I agree. I need to come train with y'all. We need to do something. I know you talked about doing another one of your armor things with Casey.
Yeah.
I'm down. I want to come see y'all. I need to get new armor, man. I want to get kind of back into bow hurt some. So I want to work on getting something that can work for both. But I want to come out, throw down with y'all for sure sometime. See how y'all do things because I see it and I'm like, yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
I want to be out there, fucking doing some of that. Even if it's not like I don't want to just do like harness fighting. I want to play, but there's a level of intensity that I want. There's levels of intensity I want to try out. There's things I want to try out. I want to see how I like them.
Yeah.
I'll definitely always be going back to bow hurt. I'm thinking about it. I my last kit, I sold it to a dude. He was a runner, so he didn't really get hit a lot. By the time he did get hit, I'm glad I sold that armor. I'm so glad. Sorry, dude, but I'm glad you got hit, not me. You know what I mean? It was like, ugh. I'll probably get steel on the brig next time, even if it's a little heavier. I'm not a big dude. I don't weigh much, so
Yeah.
it's not gonna
Well, and
hurt
that's
me to get some steel. It's not that much steel on the fucking thing.
it'll be interesting, to see you apply bow hurt concepts to harness fashion because or armored armazari. Because one thing I will say is that hitting someone in the helmet with whatever it still dings and it's not
Gauntlet.
comfortable.
Yeah. I
It's
would
not
like to
like
do it with someone who's definitely more than willing to like get the shit knocked out of them, because I think that would be the best way to translate it. You know, hand me a shitty poleaxe. Maybe a dagger and a belt. Maybe not. Probably not. Probably be too much for me to think about. Maybe not. We'll see. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I want to play with it, but I want to play with it with someone who's like, I want to play with it on all levels, but I'm totally interested on like a full scale. Like, yeah, we can fuck each other up. It's cool. You know.
there's a lot of stuff that I do not do in because one thing that Fiore in his manuscript I'm very 100% certain of is that he takes a lot of the stuff right here so that you break in your kit. Um, it is a
Yeah.
That's another thing too that I talk about in the general concept about Armazzari is that when people say, well, I like doing art, I like you, I'm a Fiorist and I fight, I do Fiore and tournament. And I ask people usually afterwards like if they've been carded, and
That's a good question.
they're like, no, I haven't been carded. And I was like, well, then you're doing it wrong. It's like I don't mean like
Yeah.
I know some people look at that and be like, how can you say that? It's like I don't know what to tell you, man. The man knew what he was talking about. He
The
knew how to
man
hurt
was
people.
defending his life. That's what he
Yeah,
was
which is
doing. He was
he's
defending
not
his life off of the strike they threw half the time. I mean, it tied in with the dueling culture. If you look at Fiore, you look back at the dueling culture at the time, this dude was like just trying to live.
especially but yeah. But before I go down too far, that you were going to ask a question. I know we got done with the Raleigh Open. I think it was good to kind of talk into and tie that in. But you had something that you had. I have a little bit more time here. So what was the question that you wanted to address?
So, I want to, well, before we wrap up, I, I want to know, not really know, because I know, but I want the audience to know, what are you working on? What do you have going on? I want to put out some of your stuff, because, you've been big supporter for me. Good friend, great guy. Everyone go check out Kurt's stuff. Kurt Holtfreter Labs, right? Holtfreter Labs, that's your stuff. I'll link it. It'll
Yep.
be on the screen in the
Thank you.
description, right?
Yeah.
Um, we all appreciate the work you do one way or another. I think you're exploring a side of HEMA and Armazzare that's not being studied quite like anything else. I definitely need you to talk to my instructor sometime. Y'all would get along famously. he would, you and him would probably go back and forth pretty, like pop 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 pop. I mean,
Yeah.
he taught me Fiore growing up, but he also taught me out of like Tensen Shoden Katori Shinto-ryu, like Yaido, Muga-ryu. And he has his family's stick fighting system. It's a peasant stick fighting, his Bastone system, that he's just starting to create curriculum for and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's a good. Yeah, I mean, y'all have so much to talk about in terms of Fiore, especially. Fun bit about him: he's Sicilian, so he can read Italian. So
Yeah.
he reads Fiore, and when I was growing up, he would read the facsimile. We're
Yeah.
talking like printed out in a binder, facsimile,
Mm.
old school. We got Shinai with cross guards on the wall, so he y'all would have fun, definitely. And we need to all come together, do some stuff sometime, and try to bring him around if you decide to do your armor workshop again.
Yeah. I'd love to do that. And um, so to answer your question, my goals right now. So Hope Federal Labs, that's my YouTube channel. I'm in the process right now of going play by play through the totality of the Getty. As much as like I don't do roll sessions. I don't ride horseback. I'm trying to think of what I'll be able to do at that point when I get there.
Talk to Billy Matt.
Personally,
Talk to Billy Matt Thompson. He trains
I
horses.
I figured like that gives me some time to kind of build that in this way right here for what I want to do. But as it plans out right now, every week I drop off there, and as you know, I'm doing a lot of stuff here when it looks down to play. And sometimes I get some good comments out there that really explore. Sometimes I get comments like I got today where this guy's like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. It's like that's evidence, but I'm not. But I'm gonna. But again, this is a person that does
That's
not.
evidence. It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Um, But again, having a YouTube helps me practice my own patience, my own prudencia. Right now, I'm working on developing Armitsari. I really want to make it into a tradition. And we base everything off of the Senyo, everything, there's plenty of times instructors, no matter what, we talk consistently like, okay, where's your fortezza right now? It's not like, where's your mindset? No, how are you standing? We can take the Senyo, we can break it down into the spot where it's really about how you fight. It's not how your mindset is, how your heart is, where everything else. I think about some of the people in this right here. We're really developing this. It's becoming more and more of a combative system. It's so much that I got contracted. And one of the things I'm telling people at some of my seminars that I have been asked to come out and do that please understand that this is a 14th century self-defense book. It is not a modern day self-defense book. So please treat it like a archaeological study and not a real thing. Because if this was a real thing, I would have charged you all a heck of a lot more. I would have given you like 3 techniques, and then I would have had to legally give you about something like 18 hours or something like that for like legal counsel and everything else, because people don't understand that side of like, I'm not talking about firearms, I'm about hand to hand.
Yeah.
So the more I do Fiore's Armitsari, the more I realize just how dangerous this thing is. But it also gives me and the team that I work with an extensive opportunity to bring and breed in a great community. Um, right now, I'm working on understanding armor that is much more to his period. So even less equipment than we might be thinking of. It's quite
That's
interesting.
what I'm into. Fucking
Yeah.
brig limbs and a fucking helmet. You know.
And the part about all that, there's a lot of good things in there that come with it all. Right now um, we have old, we have old, we have young, we have men, we have women that all participate in this. And one of the big things that I absolutely love about this, because we call to the Senyo so much in our practice, this is the curriculum side, is every time I'll be working with someone that's shorter or whatever, something that's not matched with me, and I say, look where you're at. What should you play to your strengths? And there's this, for example, there's this woman that trains with us. She's short, really short, and her footwork. She has an Olympic fencing background, and she has done extensive work with herself. The Senyo is, in my observation, has not only just been about how she fights, but also in how she's been able to enrich herself, and that's where the cultivation of martial arts is. You should be able to have fun time with it all, but at the same time too, it should also be something that gives you those emotional and what's it called, moral checkpoints and save points, because a martial art is really about hurting somebody, and without those values and virtues in there, then we lose that, right? So the part that I really want to do is I want to take Armitsari and I want to develop it into more and more of a tradition in that kind of traditional sense, which allows that kind of continuation. In order to do that, I have my lab stuff here, so a lot of sword in one hand. We use sharp sims, we don't use steel. A lot of people look at us like we're crazy, and that's because I got a taste for what steel on steel sharp work is, and it's not the same thing. And I don't reveal that to everybody. I did a demonstration at an event for the Triangle Sword Guild at Raleigh Open. I did that one year. It wasn't fighting like, but it was showing how blade interaction works differently, and that caught a lot of people's attention. And that's one of the reasons why, because of that, all the work that surrounded that, we use sharp simulators, the nylon ones from Black Fencer, to be able to do the work that's in there, because this changes drastically. I'm building concepts and doctrine for something I call range time, which is basically where we utilize soft targets or hard targets or things I can put chainmail on to allow people to have the experience of what it's like to actually use these things and not just cut tatami.
Yeah, I seen that, and I showed that to my mentor, and he was like, that's solid. I remember when you sent me that originally, and I was I was like, oh yeah, that's sick. You know, it's like I don't know if I would always practice it. Like I'd love to come and just fuck around with it. I'm sure it'd be fun, but you know,
Yeah.
I'm. It looked cool. It looked cool, and your
Thank you.
positioning was like, it's like damn, I'm looking at Fiore right now.
Wow.
It looked sick. It was cool.
Well, the maestro inspires a lot in me. So I think that I think that the manuscript is, however, whoever the man was, I think that his manuscript, he's got it. Hopefully, I'm doing it justice for what it is, but we can use it for a better outcome than the brutality thing. But yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm doing good. Good.
Oh, so I was gonna say, kind of back to what you're getting at, or what you were at before we wrap up here. With the four virtues too, kind of going to tradition in a way. Um,
Yes.
Talking about those, applying them to not just your practice but your everyday life, right? You know, I feel like there's a lot of work that could be done in the modern age with the four virtues of Fiore,
Yes.
in your fighting, in your life, everything. And
Yes.
I really appreciate the work you're doing, because I mean you're bringing it to light. You're bringing it the fucking dream, and you're carrying it up. You know, like you are pushing this. You're putting in hella legwork. I mean, you keep to yourself a good bit, just sitting here, just cranking the videos out. I can only imagine what you have written down. You know what I mean? But uh, it's something I can appreciate because I start to at times in my club talk about the four virtues a good bit. I did a full before I fell off and we started just beating the crap out of each other for a little while. I had a lot of crap going on, but I would go over to four virtues a good bit and run plays off of them, do this, do that,
Mhm.
whatever we're focusing on. I think we got to fortitude, and I was like, oh god, we gotta. It's not one we all need to work on necessarily, but I was like, there's a lot to fortitude versus like you go to celerity, you're just like, all right, be fast. There's a lot to it too, but you know, with fortitude, with the mental and the physical, uh, finding your balance between prudence and audacity. You know, it's speed's one of those where you just kind of have to have that fight, but that quick decision making, all of it is there's a lot of lessons to be learned through this work, through martial practices. And you know, if you look at more traditional Japanese stuff, or just anything Asian, really, that's more deeply rooted and from instructor to instructor, or and you know, plenty of it's written down too. Uh, a lot of the work you're doing, because you have that background too, correlates into like how you're treating Fiore, and it's beautiful. It's so
No.
beautiful. I think that's how it should be. I really do. So I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank everyone here for watching the video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. This was a great talk. Um, Talked about a lot of things I feel like we should have talked about. You know,
Yes.
so I'm looking forward to all your likes, comments, what you guys think, and if this looks good and doesn't sound like shit in the editor, and I can put it up. Hopefully, I'll be able to do this with a lot more people.
Yeah. Well, I'll also say, Bo, thank you so much. I do agree with you, and I know, you know, not all conversations are the pretty things out there. And one of the things I've always valued about us is that we have the conversations. I feel at least that are important to discuss, and we can, if we hold space for that, um, then maybe we can see that what people are saying here is not about breaking people, but more about empowering people and then maybe empowering a community to do things. Because at the end of the day, here, whether you do sports or you do combatives, they fall under the umbrella of the martial arts, and then there's traditions of values and virtues and everything else, which I hope is what everyone's striving for. But we do live in a time where values and virtues, um, especially when you don't have that, when these aren't there.
I mean, like we have these even off camera.
Yeah,
This is the conversations we have. You know,
yeah,
the only difference now is we're putting it out and we're talking
yeah.
about it, and I think we should be. I think it's a beautiful thing. More people need to talk. More people need to be on the same page. More people need to be open, transparent. Especially going forward, if we want things to work out for our sport, for our practices, our martial culture, um,
Yes.
all of it. You know, we have to have this kind of conversation.
100%, 100% with you.
100%.
So thanks again, man. And again, thanks so much for having me out here on this right here. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. I know I talk a lot.
It's perfect. Don't worry. I've been editing nothing but hour-long videos lately, so.
Okay. Okay. Well, either way, brother, I really appreciate this right here. And again, it was really good to see you at the Raleigh Open. I will let you know if we get that armor thing up and running here, because I'd love to be able to do it. There's so much more I want to talk about. I think this was a good one to talk about here, because I think the Raleigh Open is something that brings so much value to the table. And it also brings topics that are very important to the table that help us all become better. So, and again, can't do that without that. So thanks again, man.
Of course. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you like the video. Let us know what you think on pretty much everything we've talked about. I know my audience is, as far as I could tell from my analytics, is I have a good bit of new viewers, but a lot of returning viewers, which is good. Obviously, for a channel of smaller size too, of course, we're gonna be a little more niche. But yeah, leave your feedback, thoughts, all that. Message me if you know me. We can come and we can talk about it, and maybe this thing will have a title by the end of it. But for right now, I guess this will have been the post Raleigh Open interview with Kurt Holtfreter. Thanks for watching.